So we'll be starting our first question, and I would like Professor Kayode to respond to this. Africa has shown tremendous potential in AI innovation. How can public-private partnerships catalyze the growth of artificial intelligence on startups and foster a friendly ecosystem across the continent?
Thank you thank you very, very much. Yes, I think, yes. Thank you very much. The AI field is such a complex field that requires extensive collaboration and cooperation among different players and actors. The federal government of Nigeria has even called for various researchers all over the world, researchers of Nigerian descent, to come together, form partnerships to formulate policy and strategies and a regulatory framework. So let's start with getting Nigerians to come together to make decisive contributions in this area of artificial intelligence. How do we shape the growth and development of AI? How do we finance the growth and development of AI? What is the role of government? What is the role of various partners in the development of AI? What is the trajectory that we want AI to follow? In impacting the economy, AI grows exponentially and explosively. And in that sense, it's like shifting what I call the production possibility curve. It's concave, and in the process of shifting it, that production possibility curve also becomes less and less concave. So we need to study the implications of AI for the structure, for the changing structural composition of the economy. So we need a lot of collaboration among different partners to study this. We need to direct AI to actually monitor the changing structure of the economy. If we do that, the government can say, okay, we want agriculture to grow by a certain percentage. We want textile industry to grow by a certain percentage. We want yes, thank you very much. We want the ICT sector to grow by a certain percentage. And this kind of trajectory, we need to be plotted. And this is where we need the AI, artificial intelligence, to help us study that. So we can direct the growth of the economy. We can actually target. We can have a goal. Okay, the external sector is going to compose maybe 30% of the size of the economy, contribute maybe 30% to GDP. The domestic sector will contribute 70%. We can have changing structures. And we can get AI to help the government and the various partners determine that trajectory. I must also say that AI, because of its explosive and exponential nature, impacts the entire gamut. I don't think any sector is spared from the impact of AI. The impact is not sector specific or industry specific. It is economy-wide. It is national. Therefore, it is very, very important that policies and the regulatory framework we are going to develop will be national, will be economic-wide. It will not be industry or sector-specific as we do now. So it's very important for partners to come together, strategize, and judge and deliberate collaboratively and cooperatively and intelligently too on the way forward. What kind of policies are we going to evolve? What will be the regulatory framework? What are the strategies we are going to adopt to ensure that we follow a certain growth and development trajectory with the help of AI? Because AI has the power, it has it's intelligent, has the power to monitor the changing composition, the changing structure of the economy. And this is where policy can come and say, okay, this is what we want, this is the way we want the economy to look in another 10 years' time. AI, come in, do this for us. And this is where we need partners to come, collaborate, finance all these activities, and make sure that AI has that kind of impact on the economy that we want. There is no doubt that the world is completely different from what it used to be. There is no doubt that Africa must not be left behind. Right now, the development gap between the North and the South, between the developed and developing countries is wide. And if we do not harness the power of AI, if we do not grow the digital economy with the help of AI, that gap will continue to widen. And if it continues to widen, we'll be left behind. And I believe that it is high time, as the chairman said, it's high time for Africa to wake up. And I pray and I hope that we'll develop the kind of leadership, we'll develop the kind of partnerships that will make us realize this, so that we can begin to close the gap, to bridge the gap, the development gap between the developed and the developing countries.
Okay.
If we don't do that, we'll be in trouble in the future. And I don't want us to be just a marginal economy. We don't want to be peripheral. We want to be part and parcel of the global economy. So with that, I would say that Digital Africa should collaborate with the federal government to ensure that the Nigerian economy becomes digitalized the way the Renewed Hope agenda plans the economy to be, the way the Renewed Hope agenda sees the economy. And luckily, the new Minister of Communication and Digital Economy is well known to Digital Africa, and he has appealed to all partners to come together in order to promote the digital economy. And I believe Digital Africa, led by Dr. Uherem, can play a leading role in this. And I want to appeal to us to work out policies within the framework of the Renewed Hope agenda in order to propel the Nigerian economy forward. This new government wants an rapidly accelerating digital economy. And this new government wants to invest heavily in the digital economy. And in fact, this new government in the next 24 months wants to create 1 million jobs in the digital economy. They want to encourage foreign investors to come in. They want to encourage domestic investors to come in. And I believe that Digital Africa will be very proud of the renewed hope agenda if it comes to reality. So that's why I want us to cooperate with this new government in realizing a high-powered, high AI-powered Digital Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kayode. Please, it deserves a round of applause. A profound take-home from your speech, that you want partners to come together to strategize, collaborate, deliberate intelligently. That was really profound, sir, on the way forward. Thank you very much once more. Please, if you have questions, just note them down, and the time will come for you for your questions to be answered. Just note them down, and you'll be called upon. Our next question goes to Dr. Collins Agu. Are there infrastructures you propose to support the emergence of artificial intelligence? I go again. Are there infrastructures you propose to support the emergence of artificial intelligence?
This is not working.
It's working now.
1, 2? Okay, thank you.
No, it's working.
Okay, now let me use this one.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think first and foremost, I would like to actually extend my profound appreciation to the mastermind behind this strategic and wonderful conference, Digital Africa. That's Dr. Evans Woherem, for sustaining the momentum all these years. And of course, your team, you have a wonderful team. And you know, this gathering is very, very important for Nigeria, actually very, very strategic. And of course, you know, I would like to, well, I don't know if this is proper, but one of the best keynote speeches I've had so far in Nigeria was actually today delivered by Professor Mbanaso. That is why
I think he deserves another round of applause. Thank you.
See, that is why I have to commend one more time the management organizers of this program for identifying what they call the industrial experts. You know, I'm not against the enthusiasts or advocates, but somebody as an industry feels the technology, understands firsthand what is actually happening, and they can easily come together to do one or two things. So I think Professor Mbanas has set the stage for this very discussion. He has mentioned the pillars or the key points or the highlights of today's discussion. So I will fall in place, you know, with what he has said. First of all, what are the key drivers of artificial intelligence? We have to break it down before we can even understand what and what we need, you know, to facilitate our playing or participation there. Because most of the time we tout some of these buzzwords, you know. AI has come in now, ML, people who play around the world, most of the time, just like cybersecurity as well. But I would like to break it down, and that will enable me understand or relate to what we need to be in place. The primary drivers of artificial intelligence, just as stated by Professor Mbanaso, is data. But I have to add an adjective called quality data. Yes, he mentioned about weaponization of data, meaning that if the data is not quality, that means the AI can give you a different output. Because in computer science, we have what they call garbage in and garbage out. Again, another driver of AI is what they call algorithms, powerful algorithms. That is where the danger is as well. Who are the constructors or the designers of the AI algorithm that will take prediction, and so on and so forth. So that is why we can't afford just to be players anymore. I mean, to be spectators anymore when it comes to AI. We should be able to, you know, build capacity in algorithm, build what they call algorithmists. People that can sit down, design some of these systems to suit our peculiarity. I'll give you a very fast case study. I don't want to be quoted. Like in the fintech industry in the Western world, where people apply for credit, loans, they have mechanisms where the bank can even rate you, are you qualified to open an account, and so on and so forth. That's where the profiling comes in. But this algorithm is designed by a particular race, such a way that it is biased towards another race. So the moment your information is fed there, you're already victimized, because you're not a player there. So this is what we cannot afford as Africans or as Nigerians. We must be able to develop our own algorithm that is very, very fair to carry out decisions. Then another powerful driver of AI, which I must mention, I mean, when you mention about data, data can be homeless. Data has to reside somewhere. So that is where hardware and powerful computer platform come in. hardware also drive AI. Today's technological, how do I put it now, achievement we have is actually by virtue of the improvements in what they call material sciences that led to, higher processors like your car, now having billions of transistors and so on and so forth. So the upstream ICT, which I call the hardware mainly centric, is actually a major driver when it comes to AI. Now, having said this now, Mbana also mentioned the issue of data. I'm sorry, Prof, I have to be referencing you now, basically. Now, the big question now, taking this part of the world, because I would like us really to actually look at our peculiarities and challenges. They are not necessarily borrowing first world technology to third world realities. I keep saying using that word, but that's what we do, what we call copy and paste syndrome we have here. So I'm not against adopting technology, but we must do adaptation. For that to happen, you need to go inwards and actually break it down, see your strength, do your SWOT analysis to know where you're going. So the first question is, how do we gather quality data? How do we gather data that will not be biased? Data that will not have political effect, religious effect, tribal effect, and so on and so forth. And the answer is through technology. And that is why one of the NGOs I founded called TD4Pi IoT Hub, which is in Kuje, some of you must have been there. We concentrate on what they call data acquisition as a service. That is end-to-end solution when it comes to data. Because one of the primary mandates is that the data you're feeding to the AI system has to be clean. It has to be reliable. So how do you get this clean data? That is where the IoT comes in. Now, the theme of this conference is called AI and Africa. I would have, if I had the chance, I would have added just AI. I would have added OT. Also pronounced as IoT, but it becomes artificial intelligence of things. That is where your data acquisition system comes in, pushes all this data to an intelligent platform that does analytics. From analytics, can do the data presentation, visualization, and so on and so forth. So data acquisition is key. What are those technologies we need to acquire clean and reliable data? That's number one. The number two, or acquisition number 0, is all these beautiful names we keep mentioning. Cloud computing, I've had it here. I've had cyber security. Where is the energy to drive it? We tend to forget the showstopper here is energy. So reliable energy system is very important. In the TD4Pi Hub, of course, I work for NIDA. I'll still talk about NIDA as a director of R&D. But in TD4Pi Hub, where we design a lot of indigenous data acquisition platform like the Unity board, is over there. You can go and have a look, some of you. Things like the Obuno board, Ruatronic board. The primary thing we integrate is what they call energy harvesters. Because our major challenge here is energy. So if you create a system that cannot be powered after 2-3 days, it fails. It doesn't make sense. So that is where the adaptation I mentioned comes in. We're looking was to adapt technology to suit your, how do I put it now, your peculiarities. Then the next one is what they call the communication pipeline. I've acquired data from point A using sensors. For example, I'm checking the flow rate of river, checking the temperature of river, whatever. But then this data needs to be backhauled, where it could be interpreted for the layman to have an understanding of it. So that is where the communication pipeline comes in. Am I right? Now today everything is smart and connected. But Professor Bana also mentioned the word trust. That is where the issue of cybersecurity comes in. So if I should sum it up, we have like 4 drivers here. That is 4 underlying technology that helps to drive IoT. We're talking about infrastructure. That's why I'm trying to break it down for us to understand what infrastructure that we need to support. So the first one is what they call your data acquisition platform. That is where Internet of Things comes in. Am I right? The second layer now is the pipe, where you wheel data from point A to point B. That is where things like your 5G comes in. Am I right? Then the fourth one now is, okay, let me even put it in between here. The fourth one is your cyber security. How do I maintain the integrity of data that I'm sending from point A to point B to be sure that it is not tampered with? So alongside that cyber security, I'm forced to even add blockchain to help us maintain that data integrity, definitely. Then from that point, I start going to maybe your cloud application or what we call the broker platform, where you can use analytical tools. That is where your AI comes in, maybe through your ML. Because MI has to be trained. Has to go through a learning process. That is why also data sets is very, very important. So for me, these are the key points. Yes, there can be other, spin-off derivatives from this. Maybe your mobile app through an API can develop different applications. I could give a very fast case study. We are monitoring a tank in Kuje because we are developing what they call remote diesel monitoring system, where if I have a facility 200 kilometers from here and somebody pours in 20 liters, I don't have to ask somebody to tell me. So the IoT tells me exactly the volume, the volume of fuel, and and so on and so forth. So what we did was that the data set was over 90,000. So we called the lady from the hub. She's a data scientist. Kelechi is her name. She scrubbed the data, came up with 60,000. Then she was able to do analytics of the data over this long period. So we could see which year we are using water instead of fuel, which period we have the highest consumption, lowest consumption, and so on and so forth. So this can help us take some business decisions and make a prediction. So to sum up to sum up my response, we need a robust communication infrastructure, very, very key. Most of the time, we tend to forget that we have a quad-band satellite in Nigeria. I used to work for NACHCOMSAT. That's actually where I started my civil service career, where I created the R&D department. We have NACHCOMSAT 1R at 46.5 degrees east, orbital slot. It's a quad-band communication satellite, one of the best in the world. It has footprint over 90% of Africa, extended to Asia, even up to Europe. So that's another communication pipe. Then, of course, we have the cellular network where the GSM players come in. So we need to. So I'm so happy that the federal government of Nigeria, through the ministry that my agency is under, that is Federal Ministry of Communication, Innovation. Now there's that word innovation, right? That's the new nomenclature for the ministry. Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy. They've come up with a lot of master plan to promote the penetration of mobile technology across Nigeria. So that is also helping. Where maybe in my village, I have access to mobile connectivity, so I can also wheel data. So that's to do with communication. Energy is very, very key. So I'm happy that the federal government of Nigeria, I think they have reduced duties when it comes to renewable energy system. I think the cost of solar panels are really not heavily taxed. Last time I checked, there was even no VAT. Now, like 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't know the customs new policy. Right now, but 2-3 years ago, there were basically no custom duties on solar panels. Yeah, the batteries has some issues. So the energy infrastructure is what we have to look at. What are the energy power to drive all this beautiful, technology? The other part now is what they call, which is very, very key, data center now. Because at the end of the day, all this data need to be wheeled, need to be backhauled to a repository where the other necessary further processing can be done. So what is the government doing promoting data center, which is very key? I'm happy today in Nigeria, we have a lot of companies like Afrione coming into the data center ecosystem. We have Rack Center being one, and of course, one of the de facto government data center, Galaxy Backbone, is also there. So government, we need to see how we could support such a data center, because it's actually very, very expensive to run some of these tier 2 data centers with 999 availability or what have you, energy, diesel, and so on and so forth. Then most importantly now is your skills. We could stay here today, talk about Silicon Valley, keep talking to you tomorrow or what have you. So where are those brains? Because if you talk about Silicon Valley today, it's not just infrastructure. The soft infrastructure, which is the human skills, human capability, also is a major driver when it comes to this technology. So these are areas where, just as Professor Banasa mentioned, we have to build what they call industry skills. Not just paper-based. People that are hands-on, people that are competent in those technology. Why? Because they have moved from STEM to STEAM. From analytical to creative thinking. Okay, creative thinking leads to problem solving that can catalyze startups. And that is how your innovation index can actually go up through research and development. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Collins. That was really amazing. In summary, we can't be spectators anymore. Thank you. We can't afford it. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Olushola, this is for you. We have seen recent innovations such as the self-driving cars and even boats. Yeah, we've seen that. How can these solutions guarantee safety? what are some of the most innovative, okay, no, just get that question first. The recent innovations, such as the flying car or self-driving cars, how can these solutions guarantee safety?
Thank you very much. First of all, it's my pleasure to be on this podium with great minds, leaders in this industry. And I've listened to very, very, great lectures, particularly from Prof, the keynote address. I already told him he touched on every point, basically. So there's little or nothing to say now. But then, on the issue you've mentioned, safety, because that, again, is an issue. I'll try to cast our minds back to COVID-19 period, when there was that need for knowledge on how to build, ventilators. And many young people across the country started showing that they can do it. But not many hospitals were eager to adopt it because there was still that gap. Are you sure it will be safe to use? That brings to question, how much collaboration are we having amongst the key players? It's not just about the tech people, but also the end users. For example, there was a time my company had the opportunity of delivering a workshop for physiotherapists in Nigeria, in Oyo State, to be precise. And they were able to share ideas on what robotics can do to help rehabilitate upper limb dysfunctions. And it was interesting because some things that we thought were okay, they would say, no, you cannot do that because there is this particular muscle spasm that you cannot just help the person to exercise. You have to be careful, allow the person to willingly move to some extent before you continue that motion. Otherwise, it can cause some more damage to the body. And that level of insight is what every key player must have. Dr. Collins just mentioned about monitoring the level of diesel, for example. And if you talk to people in the oil and gas sector, they will be talking about CE marking, some safety and all of that. And that means that for them to even accept that technology, they must have been involved. So that level of community discussion is what I think must be provided. And that's where the universities come in. Because in the university, you have departments of petroleum, you have departments of agriculture, you have veterinary medicine, you would have sciences and all that. That tech, or whoever is involved in tech, can work on. So my question is, how much collaborations do we even see at the level of final year projects or master's research? I know about the UK where I did my master's and PhD because there usually is a theme. And when you have a theme, they will bring in experts from the engineering department, from the, whether it's the chemical engineering department and civil engineering, and you'll be surprised, how do they all fit into each other? But that's because there are areas that the civil engineer would deal with, there's a part that the materials engineer would deal with, and they all have a role to play under the same theme. So when we choose self-driving cars, for example, you would have to ask yourself, how safe are these vehicles? How smart are the roads? How intelligent are the users of the road, the bystanders, those who move around? Just to make sure that at the end, the solution fits the environment. Otherwise, we'll keep having developments abroad that would not fit into our own ecosystem. And that's the area we need to talk about. But then, policy, I believe, can help us achieve this. For instance, we have TED Fund that drives research, they fund research and help with directions. And if TED Fund, for instance, decides that for any research to be funded, there must be the role of various key players. Key players that you would almost think don't exist. For instance, it used to be STEM, now it's STEAM, right? With the A standing for arts, creativity. So when you are delivering AI solutions, where is the role of the Faculty of Arts in that project? I was called to speak on a theme about sustainability of the economy, and I talked about AI. Then somebody in the audience now asked the question, this AI you are talking about, how sustainable is it? Because when you talk of AI being a tool for sustaining our economy, the AI itself, will it end up causing more havoc, than you expect? So there must be that role of the fifth, what's the word now? The fifth columnist. Somebody trying to pinpoint where you're getting it wrong. Because if that had been done while petroleum and coal were being discovered, maybe we won't be talking of climate change today. So I think there's a role for every key player. Otherwise, it will still be a challenge adopting solutions like this. And verily, policies from government would be welcome. But then the question is, which arm of government should handle this policy? And permit me, I just want to be very politically correct today. I want to be not politically correct today. Permit me for that. I believe that NITDA has a huge role to play when it comes to driving policy. But I also believe that when NITDA sets up the National Center for AI and Robotics, one key ingredient or one key vision for that center should have been to ensure that there is that policy direction, which I believe is being done with several acts and so on, but also the resources. I'm key on the resources because I sit in a position of, okay, let's do this project. What do we need? And where can we get it? Today, most of the things we need come from China, and no worry about that. Every country imports from China. But then where are we warehousing these things? If you speak to many university students who are doing research, they will tell you that, oh, they've ordered for some parts, but they're not here yet. Lithium-ion battery, for example, it's hard to get it into Nigeria. Or LiPo battery, more difficult because that can be an explosive. So that's an area that NCAIR, for instance, could say, okay, let's identify somewhere in Nigeria where lithium-ion batteries, or at least some kind of fabrication of a battery, can start. Then the area of sensors. We're dealing with sensors for monitoring level, sensors for monitoring temperature, and so on that the health departments would need. Can we have a university research or something driving that particular development? Because when you have all that, we now see an ecosystem that can self-sustain. Otherwise, we will continue to depend on other countries. I was involved in a research where there was a need to see how safe nose masks were. Because at the point, we were thinking nose masks have to come from abroad. Then someone said, why can't you use Ankara material for nose mask? Then the research was done to see how sustainable or how safe that would be. And it was safe. Well, they figured out how best to, to put the materials together. So I think that kind of in-house research must be driven. Sometimes it's not about the funding. Because, for example, I established RAIN in Ibadan. And I refused to bring it to Lagos or Abuja because I feel like everybody should develop their community. Now, how much did it cost to set up that facility? And today, students from other countries are coming to RAIN. So I believe the problem will not be the funding. In fact, there are so many investors wanting to invest in directions that they know would yield profit. But then, where's the policy to push that? So I think that discussion must be really dealt with so that eventually everybody can go home with an idea of where they sit and what they should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Just to respond to a very important issue that you raised. NIDA is, it's a government establishment with, just for people that don't understand anyway, with maybe if compressed, IT is a pervasive, information technology is a pervasive one, so our mandate cuts across all sectors. So long as you use a computer, our mandate cuts them. So we play what they call the developmental regulatory role, both for private and public sector. We also carry out intervention. We also create policies, framework, and so on and so forth. So with the establishment of NCAR, what we normally do is that when there's need to carry out an intervention based on the trend of technology, so because it's not, thank you, this is better. So what we do is that, okay, we do what they call technology tracking. We try to see areas where we have to key in. And in keying, you don't have to wait for everything to be complete. You just initiate a process and fleshing it up as you move. However, we carry stakeholders along because the workforce we have is not enough to cover the whole of Nigeria. So people are, most of the time, they're invited. For example, when we develop the SRAP, we have a document called Strategic Roadmap and Action Plan. It is the de facto 4-year IT roadmap for Nigeria that will expire 2024. I chaired the committee that developed it. So we started internally. We're made up of 7 pillars. And then we democratized the document as a draft for stakeholders' input. It's not that we are not trying to carry people along, but sometimes it may seem that way anyway. So we're always happy to collaborate with people. And people like you need to be supported because I know what it takes. I run an NGO I founded. Up to now, I know how much it cost me from my pocket. So what you're doing is very, very strategic, and you need a lot of support, especially from the government. But thank God for the new minister, a visionary one that has actually thrown out the challenge to everybody. He wants to create that platform, or that means what, podium, where players can come and develop a policy that is centric to Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You want to respond?
Can I make a comment too? Well, I think the question revolves around self-driving cars, how safe they are. Well, I've witnessed situations in which self-driving cars misbehaved, actually were involved in accidents. And this raises a very key issue, particularly on the policy side. Is there any limit to AI? What are the limits of AI? How do we deploy AI? Should we continue to allow AI to just develop explosively in any direction? Because I've noticed that there are beneficial impacts of AI as well as there are harmful impacts of AI on society. What are the limits of AI? I think it's a very key question which governments must address their minds to.
Thank you very much, sir. In essence, how much collaboration do we have? That's still a question to ponder on. Moving on, we will be moving to our virtual panelists. Please, let's invite Mr. Edward. Mr. Edward, are you available to respond to your question?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So your question is, how do we or how would we validate startups built around artificial intelligence? How would we validate startups built around AI? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and just I think to quote what the other panelists said, like what's been said by everyone on the floor, it's hard to follow on after that. But in terms of the startups, I think they play, a very integral role in, your economy, your in improving ways of life and just how to operate overall. But of course, as they say, no man is an island. Startups tend to, move fast and break things as the, what was said in nomenclature, like in your Silicon Valley type of pop culture references. But there also needs to be a time and space to kind of take stock and again, as the word collaboration has been mentioned multiple times, to stop and take stock and speak with the different stakeholders in the ecosystem to sort of take stock and check bases, whether it's with the NITA, the regulators, the larger corporations, kind of to have that constant sort of communication to see that the innovation that's being developed or being pursued is in line with your ecosystem and environment, if you want to put it that way. So I think the opportunities are boundless, as was mentioned. I think a lot of spotlight in recent times have been placed on what you call the generative AI, which is your chat GPTs, which is based on your GPT 3.5, and then of course your GPT 4.5, your paid versions. It was an interesting note where I think Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, behind ChatGPT, he mentioned that folks in Nigeria were using the service the most out of all of Africa, and that kind of highlighted his interest to visit. And he made a recent visit to Nigeria, I think a couple of months back. So it just goes to show the immense potential. So again, a lot of spotlight has been on generative AI, such as that, or even like in your another platform called Midjourney, which is creating sort of digital rendering of through their platform, again, generative AI. But I think the secret sauce or the real magic that will come is, again, when we start to see them applied in industries. I think that it was covered quite well in this panel. It's just like you're looking at your industry verticals and how this would change and transform your economies. You're looking at your fundamental sort of predictive management of your energy sources, looking at your transportation, looking at your logistics, your supply chain for agro-foods, and your educating of the masses. I think these are sort of key fundamentals that will power any economy, and are sort of the base blocks within any economy within Nigeria, Africa, which has to be paid attention to. So I think the opportunities are quite boundless to kind of focus on sort of industry verticals specific. So startups are primed in to kind of venture in those spaces and kind of disrupt and innovate, whether it's in your energy management or looking at your healthcare, predicting outcomes in healthcare. Go into each sort of vertical and apply the opportunities, the impacts where artificial intelligence can come and be applied on. I think this would be showcase a rapid sort of transformation on a societal level. And if you pair that with communication with the other stakeholders in the ecosystem, I think we're going to see a lot of fascinating changes and improvements over the years to come.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Edward. Please, a round of applause for him. So, Mr. Vincent, can you confirm if you are available to respond to your question? Okay. While we wait for him, please, do you have your questions ready? Someone will pick them. If you have your questions, please note them. Note them for the sake of time. Note them, they'll pick them from you, and then we will read, and your questions will be answered. So moving on, let's come back to our physical panelists while we wait for Mr. Vincent. So I'll give this to Dr. Kayode in few seconds for the sake of time. Could you guide us with insights into how a partnership spread across the government, private sector, and education institutions, and how it will create groundbreaking solutions? Do I read that again? Yes. Could you guide us with insights into how, let me use this word now, a tripartite partnership spread across the government, private sector, and educational institutions would create groundbreaking solutions?
Any partnership should be based on realism. What efforts are these partners willing to make in achieving the goals and objectives of the partnership? One thing I've noticed in this country is that we do not fund research and development. If governments, or let's say the public sector generally, and the private sector, let me also identify the universities and research centers. If they are going to form effective partnerships, there must be adequate funding. I know that in the United States, for example, nothing less than 20% of budgets go into research and development. We cannot say the same about either the government, the public sector in Nigeria, or even the private sector. If you go to many of the big corporations, you ask the managing director, can you devote some resources to R&D? Say, what R&D? I'm the consultant. I am the managing director. I'm the finance director. I'm everything. So you wind up not really having any innovation. You have poor funding. So the challenge for government now is to devote substantial resources to R&D, formulate policies to ensure proper implementation. Not that funds, research funds, should be diverted or inefficiently allocated, but well directed and targeted. And there should be effective actions for failure to effectively utilize these research funds. I noticed that the UNESCO, or let's say at the international level, at the very least 26% of national budgets should be devoted to education. It's not done in Africa, in any African country, including Nigeria. Now, this new government, this new Tinubu government, wants to break that jinx. I think this country will be allocating less than 10% of our budget to education. But I think this government wants to allocate about 26%. They want to follow the UNESCO guidelines. And if they do that, I believe that government should strictly monitor that. It's one thing to say you want to devote to 6%. It's another thing to actually release the funds to do that. You should give out the warrants to do that. It's not just by, it's just not on paper alone. You've got to implement it. And there should be effective sanctions for not releasing funds and for not using these released funds properly. So we have a serious challenge in Africa, not just in Nigeria, but in most African countries. How to ensure that we'll put R&D in its proper perspective.
Okay.
Let us devote adequate funding to R&D if we really mean business in getting AI to drive the digital economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, can you confirm Mr. Vincent is available? He's not. Thank you. Do we have our questions? Okay. While we're waiting, I'll go to Dr. Collins. Okay, your question is, would AI really cause job loss? Would artificial intelligence really cause job loss?
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. Well, I think this, I believe this question is, I think is very common. It's in the public domain most of the time, but I will mention my own perspective. So the answer is yes and no. So it's a relative situation where it depends on the policies and plans in place by a government. You know, simply put, how future-proof are your workforce? What upskilling and reskilling programs you have in place, you know, to uplift people to the emerging technologies or infusion of new knowledge in line with the requirements or tenets of the fourth industrial revolution. So for me, AI will not lead to job losses, but it's conditional. That's why I said it's relative, it's conditional. Why? According to the World Economic Forum Davos, for every single job lost, traditional job lost, 3 more new jobs are created. It's a fact, yes. And I think it's even increasing. That figure is even increasing by the day. So if I should break it down or decipher that statement, it means that when these 3 jobs are created, do you have the new skill sets to fit into that job? That is a big question now. Today we're talking about blockchain. 20 years ago, I never heard of blockchain before. So if there's a new technology here where we're not building skills, I have to reference once more Professor Mbanaso. He has left here. He mentioned about curriculum rejigging during his keynote address, which is very, very key. How in line with the industry demand is our current curriculum when it comes to the educational sector? I was in Enugu to convey the approval of NIDA's management to, for the establishment of a Southeast zonal office in Enugu State, and I had a lot of interaction with the Enugu State University. I think I had interaction with the Dean of Engineering, with his team. So we spoke about some of these, industry sought-after skills and what have you. Because the NUC, I was told now, has provided 30% for customized curriculum. I think it's very, very laudable, where you don't have to adhere strictly to their own, what they've given to you. So they made provision for 30% where you can come up with your own idea or that curriculum you feel that is necessary for your student. So first of all is that more jobs will be created, but then there must be programs where we have to upskill and reskill our workforce. I'm an engineer. I graduated many years ago. When I graduated, IoT wasn't there. I'm actually a mechanical engineer, BSc, MS, then PhD in engineering sciences. But today, engineering is not just about gearboxes. You need to create systems that you can remotely monitor and feel. You first know what they call predictive maintenance now. So before a system breaks down, how do I get that information that is breaking down? That is why the IoT comes in, or data acquisition platform. How do you learn it when you didn't learn it 10 years ago? So that's why there must be upskilling programs in place. Very, very key, upskilling programs in place. That's if you look at NIDA, we are under the NCAR. Again, we are training a lot of Nigerians in various areas in collaboration with Coursera, training them data science, cybersecurity, IoT, and so on and so forth, because we understand the need of infusing this knowledge to our workforce to be players immediately, not just theoretical. Infuse this knowledge so they can actually look inwards and solve a lot of problems. Then again, about the job losses again, in line with policy again, it depends again the rate of the government's adoption of local solutions. Because somebody mentioned here 20%, you mentioned, sir, that's the budget of R&D. Yes, most multinationals, they spend up to 13% of their of their budget on research and development, because there's a saying that either you innovate or you die. We know what happened to Kodak. Am I right? Kodak died when the digital camera came up. I don't think any of you see typewriters anymore. So all this is what they call technological disruption. So if you are not prepared and it comes all of a sudden, you become extinct. So the local content policy is very key, and that is where NIDA comes in. Okay. I'm a member of the private, I'll be very fast, I'm a member of the ICT project clearing committee. When we clear the project coming from all MDS, we want to identify the level of local content that is within the scope of the project. Do you have the computers coming from Nigerian OEMs? This software, are you sure so-and-so person cannot do it? So these are just a few things I will mention that will actually drive giving job to our citizens. Without some of these policies, it will cause a lot of job losses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Dr. Lushola.
Okay, these are questions.
These are questions. I'm going to direct most of the questions to you, except the ones that were specific. So, what plans are in place to ensure the adaptation of AI cut across all sectors in Nigeria and also in the grassroots level?
All right, thank you very much. That question has come in at the right time, because now the Honorable Minister for Communications has just summoned an AI strategy team. And that's because it's important, to see how we can drive AI across all sectors. Already, people appreciate the value of AI. I'm glad with ChatGPT now, almost everybody has some level of interaction with AI. You won't believe some people don't compose normal text messages anymore. They make sure ChatGPT helps them with that. So yes, although it's also been used for crime, isn't it? I got a call some time ago from a French journalist in France who said someone used some kind of deepfake to scam somebody else. And he was wondering if deepfake is already in Africa or in Nigeria. And I said, well, there's an app for that already. Now, there is definitely a need, to drive that development. And the plan is on ground. But then the question would be, do people already see the role of AI in their businesses? I will say this because I'm aware that some multinationals already have what they call the department, the chief transformation officer. People that would help to see where does AI fit into their entire process. and operations. But some businesses still do not understand where AI will solve most of their problems. So while we are talking of AI taking over people's jobs, some people believe that no, they are immune to all that because their process requires human labor, human effort. It's interesting because with AI, sometimes you don't even need, like policemen on the street. In China, for instance, they have pedestrian cameras that capture the faces of almost everybody on the streets. I know that might be an issue when it comes to data privacy. But again, that makes it more efficient when you're tracking or looking for a crime or a criminal. And also, you can have, like on the road, cameras that can detect plate numbers and the color of the car, the brand of the car, and if possible, the people in the car. So that if tomorrow a car is stolen or someone comes to crime and goes through it with the car, you can quickly determine where the person is across the state. And that, I believe, is just one aspect of how AI can solve some of our problems. But until many business players understand exactly where this fits in, even the call for an AI strategy may not see the required acceptance within the populace. So what I would say is this. We need more than just an AI strategy committee. There must be that deliberate orientation. In the meeting, when Sam Altman visited Nigeria, and it was in Lagos, there was a meeting we had with him. And one thing he was saying was, can I know one area or two that in your country you need ChatGPT or OpenAI to improve on so as to solve some of your problems? And what I said was that perhaps we should have committees in place to look at how we can utilize AI for our people. Already there are AI systems that are built globally, but do they solve our local problems? There are some rural areas that don't have access to medical experts. Can we have some kind of ChatGPT that can respond to medical queries, but not the level of just generative AI that will just give you what it thinks is right, but something that has been tested? In the aspect of litigation, for instance, there are times when people file cases in courts in one place and in another place, and the judges might not know that the same case has been filed until they deliver judgment. And according to jurisprudence, you have to still deal with that problem. But if there's an AI system that can scan through every case file and determine when there are cases that are so related, and help with the decision of where to assign this to or not, that would also solve a problem. So until we sit down and look at the real problems and where AI fits in.
Sorry, please, the noise is distracting. I don't know if from inside the hall or outside. It's really distracting. Thank you.
So I'll round up now. Until we sit down and look at areas within the country where problems can be solved through AI, there will be an AI strategy, and people will begin to wonder, how does that affect me? Personally, I believe that the whole problem of subsidy, the whole problem of transportation, palliatives and co. can be solved with effective deployment of AI systems. For example, when government says they don't know how many people are buying petrol or crude oil or diesel, if we have smart systems where when you go to buy, with IoT that Dr. Collins has been talking about a lot, imagine if all fuel stations have a way you can tag your NIN or something whenever you buy. There is the proof that, okay, we actually sold this amount of fuel, and these are the people that bought it. The beauty of AI is that you can have so much data that nobody can really sit down to go through. But with AI, you can call for a summary, and it will give you a very quick summary once and for all. So nothing can go unnoticed when you really want to find out. So I think there is the possibility of harnessing AI, but key players must see the reasons to adopt it. And that's where national orientation must come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Well, I think it's a good idea for us to want to have AI drive the economy, virtually in all sectors. But there is a serious constraint. Any effective application of any new technology would depend on the existence of adequate infrastructures. Not just physical infrastructures, but also social infrastructures. If your educational curriculum are not developmentally functional or technologically functional, if there are no transportation systems, if there is poor electricity, if there are no telecommunication systems. For example, I try to make phone calls. I cannot discuss for 5 minutes decently with anybody without being interrupted 4 or 5 times. In other words, all these infrastructural constraints, both social and physical infrastructural constraints, should be removed. But if not totally removed, alleviated. So government has to have a deliberate policy to have infrastructural budgets, not just at the federal level, but also at the state and local government level, to make sure that we break that infrastructural constraint. Until we do that, we cannot effectively apply AI in all sectors of the Nigerian economy, regardless of the so-called local content laws that we have, and we need to have not only policy to drive this infrastructural policy, but we must have effective sanctions of the inapplication or the inefficiency in the allocation of these resources. A lot of resources meant for infrastructures are diverted to this country. That has to stop.
Thank you very much, sir. You can hold on to that. Thank you. So this question is for Dr. Collins. This person specifically requested for you. He said, my name is Nabil, and I am a recent graduate of Nile University. I work together with my colleagues on the design and construction of an, I think it's an automaton, I can't get this. If you're the one, Nabil? Yes. Okay, let's just proceed. That this is a project we are very invested in. I think it has to do with plant disease detection. Yes, plant disease detection done to aid farmers. So the question now is, are there any policies and facilities in place to aid them from Nigerian universities?
Okay, sir. Well, I'm trying to understand the question, yes. But you know, so if I understand, basically the person is conducting a research,
yes,
for plant disease detection,
yes,
and maybe even pest as well, detection of pest as well. And then he wants
to detect plant disease in the early stage.
Yes. Okay, is it the technology wants a suggestion how it can be done, or an idea I should give to them with respect to that?
Asking for policies and facilities in place to aid them.
Okay, fine. Just a first one from the perspective of NIDA, but I could also give an idea in these areas of plant disease detection and pest as well. Maybe using something like drones with very high resolution cameras, but I'll talk about that later. In NIDA, we believe so much, you know, we take seriously the SDGs of the UNO. SDG is basically a summary of all the problems of the emerging economy, if you look at it, the 17 goals. So one of the SDGs, what they call, is zero hunger, or simply put, food security. So in line with that, we established a program called NAFSA, National Adapted Village for Smart Agriculture, where we are promoting some of these precision farming, IoT-based, and so on and so forth. And also in line with this discussion here, we also have national, what's it called, NIDA adopted smart school initiative, let me use it that way, where we identify some pilot school and provide all necessary infrastructure to, you know, enable them have some of these, how do I put it now, digitized learning processes and so on and so forth. Now, as a head of research and development, yes, NIDA, we have intervention support we give to R&D activities within Nigeria, but it has to be vetted properly. We have a special committee where you submit your research proposal, whatever you're doing, we vet it. So it's not your usual conventional research that ends up on the shelf, gathering dust. No. Your research must be problem-based research. What problem in Nigeria are you trying to solve? Is it a priority area for the government of Nigeria? Then we can start talking about that. Now, let me go straight a bit. I have to be fast on this. Let me go straight to some of the research you're carrying on. I think it's a very interesting, I believe it's an interesting research. I've had that discussions in the past where you can use AI-enabled drones with a high-resolution camera that can scan along farmlands. So with the high-resolution camera, you can take pests. You can take pictures of pests, pictures of diseases. This information is fed into an AI platform that can actually, you know, process information and detect, you know, what kind of disease, and then push the information to the farmer. What are the remedy? What chemicals you have to spray there? You know, what you have to do. I believe it's actually a very, very interesting topic. But again, what is the level of local content? Because we have to move from just integration to actually development. Most of the time, Nigeria, we're still consuming technology. I'm sorry to use that word. So we have to move from technology consumerism to production. So when you bring your research papers, what to look at is what is the level of local content. Are you buying an Arduino board, put one or two things together, and you think you're doing local content? Fine, it's a good start. We must not stop there. Or you're using Raspberry Pi, put one or two things, you tell them, okay, this is a local product. I'm not saying it's a good way to start, but we must not dwell there. Technology, you have to own it to a great extent. And owning that technology, you have the power to do adaptation. If you don't understand the nitty-gritty of the technology, you cannot do adaptation. You still be a consumer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. For the sake of time, we may not be able to take other questions. We would just like to conclude. In just 30 seconds, Professor Kayode, can you just give a summary of what the topic has been all about in 30 seconds? You can just summarize what artificial intelligence has to do in the public-private sector.
Well, I believe that the consensus... It's on, yes. The consensus of views of the panelists here seems to be that there should be effective collaboration and cooperation among all actors, both at the national and subnational levels, both in the public and private sector. Scholars in the universities doing research should be able to collaborate with researchers in the private sector. Not only that,
the microphone.
The output of academic research must be converted to industrial products and industrial services. So there should be effective collaboration. There must be effective partnership or partnering between the academic sector and the private industrial sector.
Okay.
Not only that, government must come in as a catalyst to ensure that these partnerships are very, very effective. Government may not necessarily fund everything, but they must provide the enabling environment to ensure effective partnerships.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Dr. Collins, please, a summary of...
Oh, well, first of all, this is the theme of the conference is very, very apt. There's no question about that. But for me, another priority, first, I'll still go back to, what Professor Banaso mentioned about skills. There's need to rejig our curriculum, very, very important. All training should be what we call project-based training. We have to introduce project-based learning methodology, very, very important. We can have 30% Turenchi, 70% practical, because you learn more by doing. It is very, very important. Otherwise, we'll still be spectators. Then, secondly, the government cannot do everything for us. So I believe that the private sector should also come in to support some of local solutions that are coming up, no matter how crude. We went through an exhibition over there. I will have quite interesting applications and solutions with higher local content coming in. And most importantly, please, no matter how the technology is, let's deploy what they call a POC, proof of concept or a pilot. Very, very important. You cannot have everything ready. Proof of concept is very, very important. And this is where the academia comes in. Now, there's a program under my department we called, I'm sorry, I have to mention this. There's a program we came up with called the Brain Circulation Program. Why? Because of the Jacpa syndrome we're having here. So the argument is that, is brain drain actually very bad? So my question is that it's not actually bad. It is not bad if you have a mechanism to tap into people that have gone there to get new knowledge and have new networking. So that's why we try to extend some of this program to the diaspora. I'm a member of NIDO, Ukraine, diaspora. So what can we tap from the diasporas that are there into Nigeria? I'm happy that they've created the NITCOM, Nigerian Diaspora Commission, that we have. So these are areas that are very, very important for us to tap in, because they could bring knowledge, they could bring funding as well, then they could bring what they call industry experience. And then most importantly, finally, there's a very important event coming up October called Digital Nigerian Conference and Exhibition. So I'm taking this opportunity on behalf of my boss, Dr. Kashif Abdullahi, the DGCO of NIDA, Nigerian National IT Development Agency, to invite all of you to the Digital Nigeria Conference and Exhibition coming up October. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lushala.
Thank you. My final comment is to the youths in the room. If you are a youth, can I see your hand up, please? Everybody's a youth.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is this. This Jackpot syndrome has to stop. Go abroad, but come back and bring back to your country. Now, let me tell you this. The sunlight out there, and the light within this room, which is brighter? The sun out there, the sunlight out there, and the light within this room, which one is brighter? The sunlight. Which one is farther away? The sun. Did the sun have to come to the room to shine? But you can feel the light, right? Your brightness can be as bright as the sun all over the world, even when you're in Nigeria. You don't have to leave your country to be great somewhere else. Now, ChatGPT was founded by just one person and a group of supporters, right? If he had said, oh, I have this great idea, I need my government to support me, to fund it, that idea might just stop at the level of CIA because, of course, it's a very useful tool for other agencies. But no, he made that a service for the entire world, and everybody found a need for it because it was working very well. Same thing with Facebook. So I believe, for the young man out there who asked a question about the project, start thinking about software as a service, SaaS. You have something that works, adopt the knowledge of the technology of APIs, make it available publicly, let those who need it test it. When they test it, you'll be surprised that your disease detection algorithm is not only going to be relevant here in Nigeria, but even abroad, because there are actually companies that are looking out for these solutions. And we also have a number of researchers who would love to test that solution if only they know where to get it. They don't have to come to you. They can go to a website. How many of the developers even have a website that they are running, that they are showing all their works? So you need to start doing that. And finally, don't ever think that the government is not trying its best. The Nigerian government is a parent. It's like a parent to everybody. What do parents do? Parents would encourage their children when they see that they are doing great. So with a little given to you, let's see what you can do, and you will see the Nigerian government coming to support you to grow. I've seen many people that Nigerian government will sponsor abroad because they are doing so well. And that's the way Nigeria works. Nigeria does not push you to learn. Nigeria wants you to use what you have, and then they know that, oh, this is a fertile ground to invest. So the task is for all of us to make this country great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edward online. Does he have him? Yes.
Yeah, no, I think the summaries have been really good. I think if I were to add anything here, it would be, again, think about the key sort of industry sectors, verticals that are playing a key role in sort of uplifting the country and the continent. Again, I think education was mentioned, energy, transportation, your healthcare, logistics, even your capital markets, stuff that will make a difference on the ground, provide employment opportunities. I think if we focus on these to sort of uplift the base, I think a lot can happen. And of course, I think AI is always, again, just like technology, is a tool to help us elevate sort of the human condition. So use that as an enabler, but always come back to that human-centric piece of what it is to, improve, your working and living conditions for people on the ground. So think of AI as a co-pilot and what you can do to kind of drive that forward with that co-pilot. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Please, can we just give all our panelists a resounding applause? We have come to the end of this session. Just a brief summary of all they've said, and I will just cap in just a few sentences. Think of artificial intelligence as a co-pilot. And also, we can't be spectators anymore. And finally, we have to collaborate. Having said this, we would like to thank the panelists for joining us this afternoon. And to all the audience, I hope you all had a wonderful time. This is an opportunity to learn and tap from the vast knowledge of our panelists. To those whose questions were not answered, you can meet with the panelists after this session, and all your questions will be answered aptly. Thank you very much, and we call this session to a close. Thank you.